They were originally British colonies. This was British Guyana, this was Dutch Guyana, and this was French Guyana. Suriname, Dutch Guyana became Suriname after independence was achieved. British Guyana became Guyana after independence was achieved. And Venezuela is still Venezuela. That's where Mr. Chavez is, and we always hear about him in the news. He's a newsmaker. After centuries of colonial rule, Guyana achieved independence from Britain in 1966. This is an example of one relic of the colonial past. The tallest wooden building in the world, allegedly. I don't know if it's totally true. If you Google it, it doesn't really say that in more than one or two hits. But this is a cathedral, St. George's Cathedral, a Catholic cathedral, and the height of the steeple is about, I think it's 132 feet. So it's pretty tall for a wooden building, a totally wooden building. This is the capital city, Georgetown. It's usually called a garden city. It was developed and it was planned by the British. And they had a love for trees and vegetation. So this is the town hall, city hall, and there are all these tree-lined carriageways and so forth. Very flat, very different to the landscape here in America where you have skyscrapers and so forth. These buildings don't have elevators or anything like that. Everything is just, you just run upstairs and so forth. Tropical climate all year round. The criminal justice system follows the common law heritage. So we have the Anglo-European influence, where the English common law is the system. We have bicameral legislature, we have a separation of powers, we have a constitution with some of the similar rights that were developed even during the colonial era and expanded after independence. This is an inspection of the force by the president, the current sitting president. So all the criminal justice features that are present here are also present in this country. That still follows the British model with reference to policing, courts, corrections. We have jury system and so forth. This is Linden, where I was born and lived. This is the Demerara River, land of many waters. It's a bauxite mining town, and that's why you see the smoke and so forth. And one side is called Mackenzie, and the colonials went there, the British colonials, and they excavated for bauxite, and it became a very profitable business, the Demerara Bauxite Company. It was a very highly developed area with segregated housing, all the trappings of colonialism, and very little mixing between the expatriate owners of the industry and the local people. Of course, I was one of the local people living in a separate village where the ordinary people lived and all the expatriate colonials lived up in a place called Watuka that was very, very beautiful, and we still have some very beautiful buildings, wooden buildings there that would, you know, it's amazing. Right by the river, beautiful, the most beautiful landscape that you could imagine, and it has survived. So that's where the legal aid center was established. There was no legal aid. There is no entitlement to legal aid in Guyana. Only persons who are charged with capital crimes are provided with legal aid, and that's only in the High Court. In the preliminary inquiry in the Magistrates Court, there is no legal assistance. There is no legal aid for people who cannot afford a lawyer. So this center was established to fill this need and to provide legal education as well for the population. The bauxite industry had declined, and there's a lot of poverty in this area now. Many people have lost their jobs. Now the Chinese have taken over the bauxite industry, and they only employ about 200, I think, 200 something persons, whereas this company employed thousands of persons when I was a child growing up. Very wealthy area, everybody had their own home, money was no problem, there was no poverty. Now it is a totally depressed picture, and people are very poor. There's a lot of crime, a lot of victimization of children and women, and the need is overwhelming. And most of these people are unemployed, so they can't afford a lawyer. We have had women who actually run into the center to escape brutality at home. and don't want to go back home. We have to get the police to go and intervene and arrest their husbands or partners. It's a case where this is a very much needed intervention. We only deal with cases, I mean, when I say we need a legal aid center where representation would make a material difference to the person getting a fair trial. And we have excluded certain cases, narcotics cases, people who bring drugs into the community will not benefit from legal aid, and people who abuse children or molest children sexually will not receive help from the legal aid center. They are sent on to private attorneys. UNICEF has certain objectives that they would like to achieve, and that's the reason for their partnership with us. They are interested in providing assistance for victims of domestic violence because domestic violence affects children in the home as well. As a matter of fact, more than the women sometimes. Because they are small, they usually receive a lot of the brutality from the male perpetrators in the home. Juvenile victims of physical and sexual violence. People have so much time on their hands. There are so many unemployed men in this community that they prey on the children. And so there's been an escalation of sexual molestation of children, which has risen as unemployment has risen. And remember, it's a BAUXITE town. They don't do anything else there. So when the work isn't there, people just line, we call line, hang around the streets, and they prey on the children. Children in conflict with the law. The children are also forming gangs in the schools. There are many gangs, and they're fighting, they're doing drugs, there's human trafficking taking place where the children are being picked up by deportees, people who have been deported from the United States, Canada, Britain. Guyanese who came out of these countries and they didn't have citizenship, they committed crime, they were deported. They have now formed gangs, and they're recruiting these girls and using them for prostitution in the interior, where there are houses of prostitution. In this big interior, there's a lot of gold mining going on in the interior. And these girls, they're homes of prostitution where these girls provide services for the minors who go into the interior for months on end to make their fortune. And so children are actually, girls are enticed and are picked up off the street. They go to school and disappear. The cleaner for the legal aid center lost her 17-year-old daughter. She just went to school one morning and she has not returned up to now. And it's about 2 years. So it's only imagination as to whether she's even dead or alive, but it's an epidemic. So there's need for educational awareness as well as protection. Because when these children go to court, they don't get justice. Even if they are willing to give evidence, they don't get justice for many reasons, which we'll discuss shortly. UNICEF provided funding for equipment, salaries, and everything. And they have continued to do so. This is implementation. They consider us to be an implementing partner for their objectives under the Rights of the Child Committee, UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. So the region we're in is called Region 10, Upper Demerara Burmese. So we're just the executing partner for that region. And they have been disbursing between 8 and 6 million Ghana dollars per year for the operation of the center. Now, enter University of Michigan-Flint students, all right? What have the students been doing? Now, through this university's generosity, through this the graduate research program, we have been able to get the assistance of students in helping to fulfill the requirements for funding for this center. I'm responsible for funding. I'm a director, founding director. I'm responsible for writing grants, getting money for the center because the government does not fund it. So the students were able to make a great contribution because we had to have a way of providing data, analyzing data, creating a website, and we also wanted to do an education